Hi guys, so this morning we're doing the dreaded bed revamping. So what we're doing is we're taking out as many of the weeds and moss and green foliage on the top that was kind of taking over the beds. And there were some volunteers you might have saw. We had onions and garlic. Garlic is from probably the previous year, not that we planted them in the fall. I think they might have been planted and never came up, and then they came up this last year. So what we're gonna do is we are gonna rotate our beds, so we're not gonna keep our crops in our beds the same. So particularly, let me show you. All of these onions were sown in last year and did not come up, and they decided to come up this year. And this is the bed that we had some of the onions in. And then this bed had the garlic and some of the onions as well. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna rotate that up here. This bed has never had garlic or onions, so we're gonna plant this bed full of garlic and onions. And then we're going to put other things. This one has had beans in the past. So what we'll do is we'll move beans to this bed or this bed, rotating the crops around. So what we did add is a lot of things. So got our little pile here. Okay, so we took the top of the surface off, like I said, of each bed. And then what we did was we added some potting mix, we added compost, and we added, this is actually a fertilizer. So compost, fertilizer, and new potting mix. So we are going to empty these out and probably not use them this year. I'm not sure what we're going to use them for, but these had our bulbs. And as you can see, the foliage is dying back, and that's perfect because we're going to plant these bulbs in the landscape. This tree didn't make it, so we're going to get rid of that. And these are our beautiful beds. Now, this hog wire that goes around supports the tomatoes. So if you're looking for something hardy, supports tomatoes, you can't go wrong. If you're in a high wind area like we are, these are incredibly secure and you can tie things off to them. So I'm going to show you how we're going to plant these incredible onions back. They've already got a good start. Don't worry, see that root system? It's gonna take just fine. And sorry, we've had cold going around. They're gonna take to the soil just fine. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna move the garlic and the onions back to this bed and fill it up. Let's take a look. Also, we had this little volunteer strawberry that I'm gonna move to a different area. If you get strawberries and you put them in a bed, they'll take over the entire bed. And we learned this because this bed originally had strawberries, so this must have come up from a remnant of a strawberry. So I'm going to put this up in our vertical planter where it can't take over everything. Now this bed is completely turned over. So let me show you. This particular tool is used for taking seedlings out, but as you can see, it makes a perfect hole. So what if we made the hole like that, buried that down in there? Now we do know that it has to have the bulb. It's a little too far. It just needs the bulb white part to stick out. The reason that is, let's push this down, is because the bulb will, to get a bulb size like this, you'll want to bury it to about that point. You don't need the whole stalk buried. And I've watched some videos where people say that the success of their bulbs has been not burying them too deep. So we're gonna try this out. Not sure if it is working exactly the way I wanted. Look at that good root system. So no worries there. These will root in. Let's try to put you up to see this. Okay, so kind of, you do not need to spin these around. I just want the roots to get in there. And then just firmly push the bulb down. So we're going to place these. This is a trowel, but I wanted the measurement on it. So this is 6 inches. So we're placing these about every 4 inches. So that would mean that the next one needs to go here. I want to let these get established, and then as you can see on this one, I might come back after the roots reestablish themselves and expose it to that point. But For now, I want them to have a little bit of support. And that is our first row. So it looks like we're doing rows of 5. We could certainly put one here and one here. So I'll probably do that to utilize the bed space better. And what I'll do is I'll put some smaller ones in there. Okay, so all of the onions are in, and as you can imagine, I do know that we have to run new drip line to all of these beds. So Joe probably didn't appreciate that I planted those onions, but I think we'll be okay. Look at the spacing with me. I've got 5 per row. That allows these to get really reasonably sized if you look at this based on my hand. Each one has the potential of getting very large. Now, how you decide if the onion is ready to harvest is the greens that you're seeing here will all start laying over at the neck. So if you see the neck laying down and drooping, it's likely the onion is probably at the end of its growing life. And it's time for you to pull that. Now it can be sometimes they get trampled on or the high winds in our area, so you can just take a look at the bulb itself and kind of make that decision. One thing I will let you know is that lots of people make pesto out of these green tops. I have before, I like it. There's a lemon pesto that you can make, and I might be able to find the recipe for that and link it below. But these green tops are used for lots and lots of things. If you want to harvest an onion at this size, you could, and use that green top for pesto or in place of a scallion or anything like that. Now these type of onions have a hollow. This is actually hollow, so they're not firm by any means. It's hollow all the way up, and so they're able to support themselves pretty well. The reason we transplanted them was because they were growing so close together. They were planted in a row and never came up. And some of them might have been self-seeded because what onions do is they have a, let's see if I can find one, but they have a bulb that grows on the top that it's reseeding itself. So a lot of these came from that. So this bed is going to be dedicated just to onions. I have some onions in the vertical planter that I started that are more like this little guy size, and when they get a little bigger I'm going to put them into these beds. So let's finish the garlic. There's our garlic, and what we're going to do is, again, the spacing wasn't doing, the spacing was too close together, and so the bulb wouldn't have an opportunity to put on size. So we're going to replant these here and then harvest them in the fall. The garlic will go completely dead on top when it's ready to be harvested. So let's take a look at putting these in the ground. Now garlic you can bury much deeper than an onion because it needs all of that surface to be completely under the surface to bulb up. You do not, I mean, you could go as far as like here. Before they were this deep, but you could go even further if you'd like. Yeah. What I want to do is make them stable enough to withstand our wind. What I'll also plant in this bed is the sunflowers that we started. I had sunflowers here last year and I just loved them at the corner of this bed. So I'll likely go ahead and put it right in here. Now if you're wondering, will these take? I've never uprooted any in the middle of a growing season, so it'll be interesting to see if they take on growth right away or if they struggle. I'm hoping with the amendments in this bed that we added that they're gonna just continue to really thrive, because it didn't have those amendments before. Also, we turn the soil quite a bit. I know that some people like no-dig beds, but my soil gets very compacted, and so each year we're adding new soil, like you saw us digging it out. And we're hoping that that becomes the case, that we are able to do the no-dig method eventually. But we need the soil loosened each year to just allow for the crop to have room to grow. Now, if you have root crops like carrots or beets, they will drive the soil. They will drive themselves down into the soil and help with aerating the soil naturally. So, all right, that is our garlic. Now take a look at how awesome this bed looks. And these are all scattered throughout our other beds, and they completely fill this one up. So there's a little room for things we can add. We could add some okras up here in the front. Anything that loves sun the majority of the day. As you can see, the house and the garage shade those back ones for part of the day, and these ones get sun much sooner. So that's all I had for turning over the beds. What I want you to know is that gardening is something that you can always be working on. I'm certainly not a professional. In fact, this is not what I do for a living. I just enjoy it. It definitely is a stress reliever. And while we only have 4 beds, we're looking to have more eventually. I just really like seeing something grow. There are a lot of times these beds don't perform, the crop doesn't perform, or I just decide I didn't like something enough to plant it again next year, and that's perfectly fine. If you're finding yourself doing that, I think that that is completely acceptable, and I just encourage you to keep doing that. So thank you again. This is Christina within the garden, and I hope to see you in the next one.